Morning. It's bright. It's kind of the time of year where on my way to work, that sun is just like right in your face the whole time. So, thoughts. I always have thoughts on everything, right? So many thoughts and ideas. Hope everybody had a peaceful Memorial Day, honored their honored their dead, especially those uh, soldiers and first responders, but also just their families. You don't have to go to the graves uh, for a lot of years, and still today, I kind of don't love going to cemeteries, which makes sense, right? Also, I'm like, for my beliefs, like they're not there anymore, right? That's not them. Like that's a part of them. That's their physical frame and what's left of it, but that's not them. Like the spark continues, so it is what it is. Anyway, all right. I actually had thoughts this morning on the enhanced games, which somebody was asking me a question, and like they're like, well, how come they're just not smashing every record? And I'm like, well, like steroids don't like give you an instant power up. I mean, there are compounds that can help, right? Like clearly cycling EPO, oxygen, all of that, like it is helpful. It can be helpful. And the documentary Icarus or whatever kind of goes through this. Clearly the Russian team, has been using steroids for a really long time, just like straight up. Um, but even people who are exposed to people who do steroids, I don't think fully understand them. And I'm not trying to say like I'm a complete expert, but the general idea I think would be this. Steroids allow you to do more work, and they allow you to recover faster from that work and potentially get a little bit better result from the effort. So it'll even the playing field, right? So if I'm a mid lifter who has good work ethic, I can probably become a good lifter with the help of steroids. But what steroids don't do is remove the discomfort from the work. So like you still have to stomach the pain of doing all the work. You still have to be able to get through, like, oh, I did all these lifts and now the pain, and you have to be able to tolerate that, right? There's a mental load that comes from that. And then there's also just like the mind body connection, which can sound a little kooky at times. But one of the big things there is like how in tune your mind and body are. And I will say a great athlete is a great athlete, regardless of the like Luka Doncic's out of shape is still a better basketball player than like 99% of the people on the planet. Right? Like there is a level of like talent and athlete that is just undeniable. Sometimes like steroids can definitely level the playing field and they can make somebody better, make somebody more efficient, but it doesn't guarantee higher output. Right? There are those freaks of nature. Like there's a TED talk I remember hearing about that has to do with like sprinting and accounting for like the different track conditions and how fast Jesse Owens, who won the 1939 or whatever Olympics against the Nazis, like if he was running on a modern track with modern shoes, how he might have only been a step or two behind Usain Bolt at Usain Bolt breaking the world record at like 9.58, whatever insanity it was. So there are outliers. There will always be outliers. There are genetic freaks who will always just be better than you. Even if you're on compounds, they probably will still be better than you. They just have that thing that makes it just work for them. I don't think the concept behind the enhanced games is necessarily all that bad, though. Here's why. If you follow sports, Olympics, whatever, like they're constant. Everybody's constantly cheating. Everybody, like these are the banned compounds. So like, oh, this person tested positive for cold medicine. Yeah, but why were they taking cold medicine? Their excuse might be, well, I was sick. But it's like, you've been sick for 12 weeks. They found something in the cold medicine that's helpful to their training or their recovery or masking something else, right? So they're using like wild pharmacology, like, Wild West pharmacology to try to stay ahead of the curve by finding every little advantage. I love sports. And what I found as I've gotten older and as I've been exposed to higher level sports, don't be a purist because your favorite athlete is finding a way to quote unquote cheat, push, bend, or utilize the rules to their advantage. The NBA has the unnatural movements clause, right, in the calling fouls because per the rules, somebody would swipe through and take the shot and get to the free throw line because they drew a foul. Did they? No. Yep. Strabango. That's a good one. We got to slow down. Like a highway patrol hiding there. So anyway, the enhanced games, I think, do safer, more pure compounds, right? And I think with some of the breakthroughs in peptides and protein folding, this next generation of athlete is I mean, the ability to eat some amount of food and maybe to cycle on and off like a trizepatide, like for bodybuilders or even just like performance athletes. So to reduce the amount of fat and hang on to that muscle to really just focus in on exactly what you want. So you're not wasting as much energy and you're more efficient. Like there's some wild things coming, or the ability to uncap your muscle growth. That, I mean, oof. Like right now, everybody kind of has a limiter on how big their muscles can be. Like you have a natural limit, and you can push to a certain level, and you can do some things with diet and exercise to like obviously push past gene expression. There's a kind of like a upper limit of how big your muscles can be. Now, and big muscles aren't necessarily the only answer. I'm not saying big just muscle growth, fast twitch, slow twitch, like the number of fibers and all that you can have, there's a cap to it. But if you could change that cap, or if you could push beyond that, like, I can have 25% more muscle that's X amount more efficient in my legs. That's a huge deal for like every sport. And how do you test for that, right? Like, you're getting to the point where if I had specialized compounds designed specifically for me, like, what would you even test for? Because like, you would test to see if certain genes, like, you'd have to know ahead of time, like, this was what they were as a child, and what got turned on and off manually so that they could become whatever they are. Like that, like, I think the ability to, I'm sure somebody will figure it out. Somebody will figure out, like, there'll be some fingerprint left behind, like, well, this metabolizes out into this, or this is left behind when this happens. But it's one of those things that's like, testing might get real interesting for a few years while they try to figure out, like, how do I test for an individually designed compound? An individually designed compound that did the same thing that just increased your red blood cell count, like, permanently. So like, you just handle more oxygen at this point. Like the people who live in Nepal and like hike Mount Everest all the time, like, they just have the ability to process more oxygen. Their lungs are better developed. They survive better at high altitude, low oxygen. So I think if you're testing for specific compounds that are allowed, like, you're in a much better place than the arms race that is where we're headed. Where we're headed, though, there might be a lot fewer side effects, though, too. So that's kind of the thing about these proteins that turn on and off individual genes to do specific things. In theory, there's a much lower side effect. In theory, always in theory. Also, speaking of enhanced games and steroids, people are going to get a hold of illicit substances. They're going to go to the vets and buy them for unofficial purposes. But like, all these people look maxing, like doing steroids and like at like 15, like, bro, don't. At least where I grew up, things that I know, we always knew, don't do that. You're too young. Like, once you're 25, it can still be rough on you and your heart and things like that. But like, if you are still kicking out max amount of like natural hormone, don't be taking like exogenous. That's like external artificial testosterone or real. That is going to shut down your production. That is going to cause you have massive problems. That will make you a short king for forever, right? Like, 15 shootings. Like, come on, man. So shame on parents for like not like, oh, I can't stop them. I don't know. Yeah, I guess emancipate them if you can't stop them. It's really hard to buy steroids if you got to pay rent. Yeah, they're not cheap. FYI. That's why bodybuilding is not a cheap sport. Like, you want to get on a good cycle, it don't cost you money, man. Especially if you're going to get it from someplace that's like doing it right, quote unquote. Like, it's going to cost you money. But and I think that plays into like I would never encourage a child to do steroids. I would also never encourage a child to do puberty blockers. Like when you're playing with hormones while under a developmental phase, you're leading yourself to a very bad outcome. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying those individuals who feel like they're in the wrong body shouldn't like wait until you're developed before you start jacking up your hormones permanently. That's what I'm saying. Like, listen, at some point, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I may not agree with that. Like, that may not make sense to me. That doesn't mean I don't think you should be able to do it. I think there should maybe be some guardrails on when we engage in specific behaviors. And I think a doctor who's being rational and reasonable would also say the same thing. Be like, yeah, let's wait. Because any doctor who's saying like, yeah, let's do this at this, like, come on, man, you're part of the problem. You're trying to make money. You're not actually providing help. I understand that individual probably doesn't feel great. I understand they feel confused. I don't understand that particular confusion. I understand like the looks maxing, the feeling inadequate, the feeling like you're not it, that you're not desirable by, but like the looks maxing kids, like oftentimes don't even care about women or like the attraction that direction. It's all about how do I look, which I mean that's a vanity level of vanity that I don't understand at all. But once again, don't be messing with your don't be messing with your hormones. Like do not be taking external like compounds like that to get outcomes that you feel like are going to make you look better. I'm not a doctor, but like I spent a huge portion of my life, even though yeah, I'm kind of fat and out of shape at this point, but huge portion of my life in the gym and being exposed to gym culture and knowledge and the pharmacology of that. And I have some friends that are very, very knowledgeable and very, very respected, I believe, within the fitness industry. On my dad has run some sort of shake shop, protein shop, whatever, probably most of my life. Not that we've had tons of interactions, but like at least peripherally absorbed information. And yeah, that was just always the hey, watch out for these things. Don't do long term damage to yourself. Right? Like even a guy in high school like popping steroids to try to get to a college team, like that's a it's a tall order, my man. Like because that might still kind of mess you up because also some of them have like unintended consequences, like hardening ligaments and things like that. So yeah, you're jacked, but like you take a hard cut, and suddenly there goes your everything. But that's just like I think we should sometimes slow how we make certain decisions, especially like for a child trying to make a decision that's going to impact the rest of their life, right? Like both could make you permanently infertile. The inability to have children in the future. Right, you start shooting testosterone at 15 and like make yourself sterile. That's a long term permanent consequence that you didn't have the wherewithal to consider. And like, yeah, everybody's like, I don't want kids. You might change, right? That may ebb and flow throughout your life, what your desires are, what your age is. A whole bunch of factors might play into whether or not you want kids. Now, I'm a fan of domestically produced children, like just I guess a funny way to say it. I I think a population within a country should have at a minimum replacement base. The population replaces itself. And if you need a little population pop, people should be planning ahead and be like, yeah, we want to increase our population slightly. We should encourage policies that do that. Not, and if you want to slow your population, like you should drop back, not like a one child policy. That was wild. That looks like it's going to have catastrophic consequences. But they're now trying to do at least replacement. But is it too little, too late? Because I mean, that won't be really having an effect until what, another 5-10 years, maybe some sort of stabilization. But that's if any of the people that are having kids, if there's a sufficient number of them that had to. So yeah, that's just talking about China's policy. But you don't do that. But yeah, like hey, like we're gonna maximum tax or support is for 3 kids. 4 kids a little less, and then 5, it's just like diminishing returns. Right? So you want to encourage people to get there, to make it easier for them to have the correct amount that you want. Like I'm not saying they shouldn't have, right? If they want to have 12 kids, have 12 kids. But like the optimum amount that we would like, or make it so like people can cap and trade. I don't feel like tax credits is the answer. I hate tax returns to stimulate families because that's a rich people thing, not a I'm in the moment having kids type thing. Like I need money today, so like taking it back at the end of the year just is kind of stupid in my mind because typically the people who are having kids aren't usually all that wealthy. So a tax kickback at the end of the year isn't necessarily beneficial because they end up in the hole trying to get there in at least our current economy. Anyway. But yeah, like so if somebody doesn't want to have kids, let them, pop the credits off to like, somebody else. Like, hey, we'll transfer this to my friend who I don't want any kids and they want to have 5. So like let's do that. But I think we want to encourage the most amount of people to have replacement or slightly above replacement. If you had you're shooting for 3 to 4, like you'd probably end up with a positive birth rate where you're at least at replacement because stuff happens. But that's me being all like, let's plan ahead and let's encourage the things we want. And boomers are the problem. Oh yeah, that's not an original thesis, but like there's a coming conflict, economic conflict, and it is the asset class versus the non-asset class. So the wealthy versus the not. And there are lots of people from every generation that are successful, right? They are in that upper class. But the bulk of them currently are in the boomer demographic, right? They are the ones that have the most money, the most asset, the most resource. And I think the coming conflict has to do with this energy crisis that we have going on, caused by a boomer. But the offshoring of jobs, really driven by the boomers, right? They are the real masterminds behind that nonsense. Financialization of everything. That's what they did. I keep talking about it as I've been trying to flush out my thought on this. I remember when my grandpa got laid off in the 90s, and everybody over 55 got canned. Everybody, which was illegal, but they did that. And now thinking about it, I'm like, that's about the time the boomers really started to come to power. They were starting to be elected in mass into Congress and the Senate. They started winning the presidency, right? And they have done so ever since. And they have voted, they kind of destroy, like the Bill Clinton boomer, they created the true uniparty. They're the ones that destroyed the Republican and Democratic parties into kind of this uniparty that is all just pro-war all the time. And then the cooking of the laws for all these weird real estate things. Like this has been the boomer project, and they've not fallen out of power since they're such a big group. They've just kept voting each other in, probably 10 to 20 years longer than normal because, they didn't have to compete the same way with other generations because they just had a bigger voting bloc. And I think, when you're talking about going to war in Cuba, like I think if Trump knocks off Cuba or the Cuban leadership, I think that or $5 a gallon gas really becomes the catalyst for like, hang on, y'all keep doing really dumb stuff and making everybody else pay. They're the group that complains that about how efficient the government is, except their life's project has been spending the last 50 years making it inefficient, voting in people who made it inefficient and corrupting everything. They're not alone in that. Power corrupts, like every generation is participating. There's some stupid people everywhere, but they've just been doing it a whole lot longer than anybody else and enriching them, their group, more than anyone else. And as they get old, there's going to be this asset fight, this resource fight. And I think it gets real dicey when it's like, no, we are not, why should we pay for your social security bill? You've been trying to get out of it the whole time. What you paid in is what you get, because I'm well aware I'm not going to get it, which that feels like a bad bill of goods. And they've been drawn on it forever, and they're not unwilling to move the age up. I'm like, all right, well, when push comes to shove, what do we do? Anyway, so randomly enhanced games, generational conflict, and like maybe not letting kids do steroids or hormone blockers. Like, don't play with your hormones until you're past 25, and then do you gumshoe, right? Like, if you feel like that's gonna make you happy, if you think that's gonna make you happy, like I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying like wait until you're developed so you don't suffer the same massive long-term consequences. Be smart about it. Like everybody's uncomfortable as a kid. It does feel unbearable. You feel like you're never gonna belong. And it doesn't always go away the exact way you'd hope. You gotta stop, smell the roses. Take it day by day. Like I get not fitting in. I get feeling uncomfortable. like get not feeling belong, get actually not belonging where you're at, right? Just don't make a rash, sudden decision that is a long-term consequence. Anyway, that's my ramblings this morning. I'll probably post something else more condensed later. So have a great day.